someone is always going to be upset. Whether I'm too thin, whether I'm too big. I think we need to really take a step back and go, am I happy? And I think that needs to be the new scale that we measure things from, because it's so much easier said than done.
Okay, this interview has been in the making for a while. We've been talking a lot, and basically all of our conversations with our beautiful guest really aligned, starting from her sister's bachelorette party. We were there and we started to talk, and it was like, holy crap, we are on the same page. We're so aligned. And it was just like, I need to have her on the podcast. So finally, welcome, Caroline Lunny. I'm so glad you're here.
Hi.
Thank you for being here.
Oh my
good
God,
friend.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy that my sister brought you into my life. And I feel, it's one of those territorial things. She's like, hey, I'm sorry, can I also have her as a friend? And I'm so happy that Courtney's so kind and sharing, because
she's so sweet.
It's so nice having you as a friend. Such a breath of fresh air. So
you're so sweet. I feel the same
Courtney.
about you.
Thanks, J.Go.
Yeah, we love you, Courtney.
I
we love her.
So much.
But we've been having conversations, and even before we hit record, we really connected over the experience of going through and having to deal with body image issues and growing up and different pressures, especially growing up in the late 90s, mid 2000s, like that whole area. We were talking about that heroin chic coming back and all that.
It needs to stay where it was, because you've worked way too hard to get where we are. And women are having a hard enough time with accepting their curves, let alone pushing heroin chic.
I did a whole podcast on it. It's like, body types are not trends. We don't need to push anyone into that. It's like, really just show up as you are. And it took a while for me to get to that point, and I know same with you. So I'd love for you to share a little bit more about just your story, where you grew up, what life was like for you. And it'll be definitely more of a free flow, because we're tight like that. That's just how it goes.
Okay, so I grew up in Holliston, Massachusetts. And ironically, I am living in the house that I grew up in, the house that I worked so hard to get away from. And like, when you grow up in a small town, like we had 3 stoplights. It's very, very small, out in the woods of, not like hardcore woods of Massachusetts. We're like an hour away from Boston, but small enough to be like, get me out of here. And with having that desire to see the world and go do big things, all of a sudden I found myself doing the Miss Massachusetts Teen USA pageant. And I happened to win my first try, and which was really cool. But like, we were like packing up the car, like, hey, bye guys, thanks. And they were like, girl, where are you going? You're going to Miss Teen USA. And I was like, come again, what's that? Like, I had no idea. My mom and I were like, what the fuck is going on? Like, we had no idea. And as much as I love that whole experience, and as amazing as that was, and as like it changed my life. I have some of my favorite people I met from that experience. It gave me a whole kind of confidence that's just, I don't know, like when you're, young and you're not really good at any sports, it was kind of like, made you feel good.
Yeah.
But with that, I won in 2007, and I was Miss Mass Teen 2008. And so that's kind of in those heroin chic years.
Yeah. Like, you were how old at this point?
I was 16, and then I turned 17 a month later. So, and it's funny. So when I competed for the pageant, you're supposed to like go to the gym, and you're supposed to work out so hard because there's a bikini competition. And I would go to tell my mom I was going to the gym, and I would go to California Pizza Kitchen with my friend Tina. I'm like,
we love Tina.
Tina, we love you so much. Thanks, Tina Carbonell. And it was great. It was one of those things that was like, oh, cool. Like, I didn't even need to work hard. But then when you go to the big leagues, it's a different level. And it's funny. I remember, like, unrelated to the pageants, but I just remember thinking anorexia was cool for some reason.
It was almost like natural for other people to do it. And also, I don't know if you noticed this, but looking back, this is just no shout. I love my mom so much. I love you. But like seeing how they ate and how they spoke about themselves and all of those things, it definitely made an impact. But you thought it was normal. You thought it was healthy, but really it was disordered eating.
And it's so funny because I have an almond mom, but she's more of a raspberry mom. She doesn't really like almonds, but she'll be like, oh, I'm full. I just had a couple of raspberries. She won't even eat the whole little thing. Like, I could scarf down the whole thing.
Before I get home. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's a travel snack. I'm having I'm putting that in the bag. Like, my passenger princess is, truthfully, it's cookies and raspberries. Like, yesterday I left Whole Foods and it was a banana and like the Whole Foods cookies. I had 2 cookies and then whatever. But so it's hard growing up with a mom who hasn't really put in that effort to learn how to have a healthy relationship with food. And then that's the person who's raising you and teaching you. Because when you're a kid, what do you know? And so you watch your parents and they're leading by example. And now it's funny to look at my mom and be like, oh, you have an eating disorder.
Yeah.
And she doesn't think she does, but she
not.
for sure does.
Yeah, but she's never been told that. They were taught that that was so normal. I mean, do you remember, I was looking back at diets from the past and it was literally like, eat half a grapefruit, drink a glass of white wine, have one.
I remember that. I remember that. It's funny you even say that because like my nanny also did that. Like my nanny was like a beautiful, amazing woman who tried out for like the Patriots cheerleaders, and she was like absolutely stunning, gorgeous. But I remember she would come over in the morning and she would eat half a grapefruit. Luckily, I hate grapefruit.
Me too. Me too. I don't know. Some of those foods I feel like I hate just because I saw them growing up so much. But yeah.
Well, so then for me, I feel like, and I don't know if this is true for you too, but trying so hard to avoid that almond mom, half a grapefruit life, I feel like it kind of pushed me so far to the other side. And then there's also that piece of like, oh, I just naturally am like this. And so you like eat more to be like, no, I'm cool. Like I don't have to whatever. And then I'm like the heaviest I've ever been. So
yeah, it's so I went through it personally and then also help my clients through it. And it's really crazy because think of it like a pendulum and you're either all or nothing. So it's like, okay, well, I know I definitely don't want to be this almond mom. I don't want to be restricting myself. And it's almost a rebellious nature to be like, no, don't tell me I can only have one pizza. I'm going to eat the whole damn pizza. And so I remember being in that place. And the other end of the disordered eating is binge eating and overeating and all of that.
And just being like the cool girl who like,
and you're like, this is
I can eat a whole pizza. Like I love to eat. And then you're like, well, no one should eat a whole pizza by themselves. Well, I mean, hey, do you. But
you do you. No, and that's the other thing. I think some people, when they come out of that and come back to that middle ground of balance for them, they're getting mad at that place in their life. But it's like, no, you also needed that to heal. You needed to almost give yourself permission to, like you said, like just this is my body right now. And then can it change down the road? Yes. But it's hard to figure out where that line is when you were never taught it growing up. Because I remember I had no idea. So I just thought, okay, food freedom means I can eat pizza whenever I want. I can eat donuts whenever I want. But what was the reaction of that? I felt sick all the time. So I had to figure out this balance and really heal that relationship with food and even eat salad because I wanted to feel good, not because it was like, I'm eating a salad to lose weight. Exactly. So the punishment association was hard to break.
Jonah Hill talks about that. And I didn't get to finish watching it, but the biggest takeaway that I had from that was where he talks about, because obviously, you know, we know that Jonah Hill, his weight really, he knows how to fluctuate. Like he's that pendulum swings. And I love that he talked about how exercise is more for mental health than as a punishment for the way that your body looks. And I needed to hear that. It was just so important to hear that because I felt that to my core.
Well, it had been ingrained in you. When you eat some things, the comments would come out either at you or just to themselves. People would say things around you like, you know, oh, I need to work that off. And I'm curious, that happened to me definitely in a family and like other environment. Do you feel like there was even more of that in the pageantry world? You mentioned it was next level. Like describe that to me. What was that like for you?
Well, so at the next level, you hire coaches, and then the coaches, and especially, like I said, back in 2008, that's when Victoria's Secret fashion show, Donald Trump owned the pageant at this point. So just like let that put things in perspective. So
enough said.
Just to let me paint the scene. Trump owns the pageant. It's 2008. We all idolize the Victoria's Secret
and
fashion
heroin
show.
chic.
Heroin chic is still thriving. Low-rise jeans I think they've come up a little bit, but not by much. And yeah, the coaches tell you need to look this specific way. We already have a hard enough time like going to the beach, right? When no one's taking your photo or whatever. You are prancing around on a stage in front of the world. And so you're like, okay, no pressure. I need to hit the gym and I need to hit it hard. And so luckily I didn't have an eating disorder then, but that comes later. I had a wonderful trainer. And the one thing I will say about this is I did fall in love with learning to take care of myself. And again, there's with this like pendulum things, like there's a good piece of it, but also people love to shit on pageants and modeling and whatever, but there was a beautiful piece to it.
There's a confidence piece for sure. That's hard to put yourself out there. And that's something where like
1,000%.
Not a lot of people could do.
I mean, sometimes now I'm like 32 and I'm like, where did that confidence go? Like, I'm just like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. Like, sure, great. Let's go prancing around in a bikini for everyone to see. Let's go. Start the car. So like the thing that was cool is I had an amazing trainer who taught me about weightlifting, and it's cool to work towards something and go up for yourself.
Yeah.
Set that goal and stick to it, because I am notorious these days for quitting on myself. And I think it goes back to that rebellion that you were saying. When I went to Miss USA, I think I had spent 10 years idolizing this position and thinking I'm going to go to Miss USA one day. I want to be Miss Massachusetts. Because when you're a teen, you're like, obviously the next step is, when I'm older, I want to go to Miss. So I grew up idolizing it. And then when I went there and I didn't even make top 15, and I made top 15 as a teen, I was like, well, what's the point? What's the point? Oh, I'm not good enough. And I remember telling myself little things like, oh, well, maybe that girl needed this confidence boost more or whatever. Like, that was like her time. She needed that more than I did. Like, because I'm strong. No, bitch. That was just a lie I was telling myself. Like, and I had the second highest odds in Vegas, which was cool. Like people are literally spending money believing that I
would make it. Yeah.
Worthy. And and then the judges were like, nah.
Yeah.
I was like, cool. Great.
That's got to be really hard though, because growing up, going back to those like formidable years of like teenagers, we are definitely in those years, at least I was, looking for acceptance, affirmation, and it was very much external. I didn't care what I thought about me. I cared about what she thought about me or what they thought about me or the boys thought about me. And that continuing to translate into a larger scale, like you were getting judged. And so basically, it almost programs us to think, okay, this is my worth based on where I place, based on where things are at. And so it's very hard to break up that self-worth with the external because it has been ingrained. You said 10 years, and 10 years, like that's where you're getting those 10,000 hours, you're getting towards like the expert side of everything that you were working towards, and your focus was towards that. So you kind of mentioned idolizing this position of Miss USA. So when that didn't pan out the way that you had envisioned, what was next for you? What did that feel like? And what kind of led up after that? What was the outcome?
Oh, I felt completely lost because the whole thing in competing for Miss USA is, for me at least, I don't know for other people, but it's like they kind of sell you on this idea that you'll win and you'll be offered this amazing job hosting a show or being the next Halle Berry, because Halle Berry was Miss Ohio, and all these doors will open for you and you'll just be handed a job. And it's just like, okay, cool. And I almost feel like I didn't have to work for things as hard, because I just thought like, oh, well, that's going to naturally be my stepping stone into life. And then when it didn't happen, I had an absolute identity crisis. It was a weird phase of my life. But so then a month before I gave up my title, I met this guy who I ended up really loving and just being absolutely mad, like crazy about. Like, dated for 2 years. But so he was an NHL player. And so he had a really demanding career and a very exciting one. And so it was kind of the Band-Aid to my bullet hole of needing to work on myself. And I remember, like, I love him, but he was a sloppy drunk and a little bit mean when he would drink. But he had said something along the lines of, what do you want to do with your life? Like, blah, blah, blah. And was like kind of coming for me, and also like, and his brother at the time. And I was like, you have known what you wanted to do since you were 3 years old. And not only like have you known what you wanted to do, you're very good at it. Like, he is, 32 and his career is nowhere near over. Good for you. High five. Love that for you. But like, when you don't know what you want to do, you kind of flail around a little bit. And so I did kind of cling to his life and his lifestyle. And it was fun to go to games. It was fun to go to like events and charity things and the hockey parties and like all that stuff. It was fun.
Yeah.
But then again, like, it's the Band-Aid to my bullet hole. And like, what do I want to do with my life? And when we broke up, it was actually, to date, my favorite year of my life, because I poured into me. And it's funny because Courtney will tell you, my sister will tell you, that when she found out that we broke up, her and my mom called each other and were like, oh no, this is going to be bad. Like, they thought I was going to fall into this deep, deep depression. And truthfully, like, I should have, but instead I poured into me. And it's when I started doing Soul Cycle. And it's when I started reading books that I always said I was going to read, but I never did. And so it was just really cool to see that my happiness for once came from me, and it wasn't associated with like, oh, I'm a pageant. And it was
goal,
just like,
or
it was
person.
little things, little ways that I showed up for myself And I didn't have an eating disorder anymore. When I was sad, I would go to SoulCycle. So that's probably why I was in such good shape, because every time I would just be in the back row crying on the bike.
It's dark enough to just like sob.
Yeah, like I was that girl sobbing.
I've cried in spin. You're fine.
If you saw me crying on the bike, no, you didn't.
I know.
Like how in SoulCycle, the last row is elevated so you can see the whole room. And to me, more than anything, I'm not there for like myself, my personal
Energy.
best. It's the energy. And
Yeah.
I love that you said that word, because that's exactly it.
Yes.
It's the energy. And when everybody rides, yo, it is the best feeling when you go to SoulCycle and that you first like hit that first click in and you're just like, everyone's stomping on the beat, everyone's riding on the same foot.
Yeah.
And you can see the whole room riding together. It's like, it's euphoric. It's just it's a happy place.
Yeah. I love how it's set up, because all spin class is very similar in the sense of the dark room, the lights and everything. And I really think you talked about this with moving your body and seeing the documentary that they were talking about, like just doing it for your mental health by putting yourself in a room where you're not looking at a mirror. You're able to just focus on you, and the way that a lot of the instructors, or at least good instructors, will really help kind of gear your mindset towards pushing yourself in a way that's loving versus putting yourself down. And I just think that shift is huge, and more people need to step into that in a form of self-love when it comes to your workout. So I love that you were at that point. It sounds like you were finding yourself in this period.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was great. And it's funny because Cycle Bar has the stats on the screen. And I worked at Cycle Bar for a little while when I first moved to Florida, even though I had a real estate job, but I wanted to meet people. And I don't think people enough like were just like, hey, like go do this other job. That's not your real job. Go make some friends. Like,
girl, that's what I do.
Yeah. And so but I remember, like, because I obviously got to ride for free, they would come over and turn my monitor on. And I was like, I'm going to switch my bike now. I was like, I did not turn it on for a reason. I don't want to look, because I'm always in last place. And I'm not here to feel bad about myself for being in last place. I'm here for myself. And like, I think like it's so important for people just to like move your body because you deserve it, and not because your Apple Watch says that you've burned this many calories or you've got that.
Yeah, meet yourself where you're at. And I actually would have my clients who love their Apple Watch. I'd be like, okay, you're going to work out today without your Apple Watch, because again, we would quantify our worthiness behind how many calories we burned, how many did that. And it's so easy to get caught up in numbers. I don't know if you noticed this, the number of like what place you land in, the number of how much money we make, the number of what the scale says, and all this stuff. And so I had to break up with all of these numbers. And I don't know if you had that experience. Yeah.
It's so good to do that. I think everyone should be doing that, and like to reevaluate why you're doing this.
I want to come back to kind of what was next for you. So you said you really focused on yourself. And so taking that year for you, what was the outcome of that for you? Tell me about where you were at, kind of things that came up, maybe opportunity wise or just mental wise, just kind of what was next for Caroline.
So I was in the best headspace I've ever been in, like happy. And I was feeling the most aligned. That was the first year I made a vision board. And sure as shit, everything on that vision board came true that year. The book that I put on it, like I had never read a book before. I don't know how I got through high school, because I just like probably Spark Notes or something.
Spark Notes.
Like, I don't know. I won Smooth Talker as my high school class superlative. So I probably just, like weasel my way.
Smooth Talker. Wait, yours was Smooth Talker. Mine was Most Spirited. I can see that for both of us.
That's so you. I love that you got that. That's so good. So good.
God. Yeah, I love that.
Great. Good times in high school. But yeah, so I didn't ever really read any books, but for some reason I put Girl Boss, which was like Sophia Amoroso or whatever her name is, Nasty Gal Girl. I like just put that on my vision board for some reason. And I actually read that book start to finish that year. And I was like, wow, I did that. And then I had SoulCycle on there. And then I had never taken a spin class before. I just was trying to channel like healthy things. And I fell in love with SoulCycle, obviously. And then I put a bunch of beachy looking things. I moved to Florida that year. And my whole move to Florida was kind of like a wild hair at my ass. I was like, I want to do that. Because my ex and I had broken up, but he had been traded from Boston to Florida. And I loved Florida. I loved living there. I loved being warm all the time. You live near the beach. You can't be mad. Like you can't be upset with life when you live near the beach. And so I was like, I don't care that we're broken up. Like screw you. I'm moving here anyways. It was really cool just to be feeling empowered and not needing anyone else's permission to do anything. And I was just literally the best version of myself. And then I decided to sign up for The Bachelor.
Okay, this is where we're going. So then you signed up while you were in Florida, and then got into it.
So then I signed up for The Bachelor. I got on, and things were good. And then here's where that competition aspect came back in. that feeling of you're not enough. And then also it kind of triggered these wounds from my breakup that I hadn't really dealt with because I just was crying in SoulCycle. And I was like, endorphins make you happy. Like,
that's my therapy. Yeah.
And it was, but I was still feeling so rejected because this person to this day is like the person I've loved the most.
Yeah.
I haven't loved anybody as much as I loved that guy.
Yeah.
And going on the show and like, you know, you just like, I'm going to go and it's going to be this amazing experience. And I was thinking about this the other day and it's like, bitch, it's just a TV show. Like, why did you put so much pressure on it? Like, did you really think it's like going on Love is Blind or like 90 Day Fiance and be like, I didn't meet the love of my life. What do you mean?
What? Yeah, but at the same point, it's hard not to when you're in its environment again. So like you're in it and it's what you're being fed of, okay, this is what it's going to look like. It's possible. And you have seen the percentages that do work out. So you're like, maybe it'll work out for me. So it's
I'm
hard
like,
not
I'm
to
going to be the Sean and Catherine Lowe. Like, this is going to be great.
The fact that you said the two that I actually know makes me very, very happy.
Go Jordan. Yeah, there we go. And so when I got sent home after a month, like you feel like a loser. Then I also have a whole imposter syndrome in the Bachelor world, which is really weird, but I've done 3 shows in the Bachelor franchise and I still feel like I'm not worthy enough because I don't have like all the followers. Again, back to the numbers. And it takes a lot to try and retrain your brain to be like, fuck off with the likes, the followers, you know, how far you made it, what week you made it to, were you in the top 4? Like, the fact that I got to sleep at the Bachelor Mansion itself, let that just be cool.
Wild. Yeah.
I like used to love the show and I didn't watch every season, but I would get hooked on JoJo's season. I was like, this is so fun. And I remember there was one morning when we woke up in the Bachelor Mansion, the master suite had 10 girls in it. There was 1 million bunk beds in there. And so it was like the coolest summer camp you'll ever go to.
Literally.
But so then we're like, open up the balcony in the morning. You'll have a cup of coffee. And you're like, dude, we're fucking at the Bachelor Mansion. Like, this is weird. And it was cool. So even this moment, I'm working this out right now in this present moment.
I
like,
love it.
Allowing myself just to be like, hey, that was cool. Like, focus on the coffee on the balcony of the Bachelor Mansion.
Yeah.
No one gets to do that.
Yeah, I think that's good. And you can hold space for both. And I love that you're in these different instances, you are pulling from it in a way of like, hey, this was a really good experience. Because I'm sure there were some experiences from that weren't as nice, that maybe really did kind of fuck you up when you came back. And what was the biggest thing? Because I dealt with bullying on a small scale and growing up. So I'm curious, did you experience any of that during, before, after, later from that experience?
We were known for being like the girls season. We loved each other. We're like don't talk to my friend like that. We had each other's backs and we're still super close. During this podcast, I keep getting the ding from a group chat from one of the girls from the show from her bachelorette party that we're planning. We're all going to Cabo and it's going to be so much fun.
Awesome.
And like, so it's cool to have had that experience because I've seen some other seasons be like really mean girls and we really empowered each other. And I really love that. And I never felt like anyone needed to step on anyone else to get ahead. It was like, hey, if he's your guy, he'll be meant for you. No one needs to be like, I'm next. I'm going to go see him next. We just really had a lot of respect for each other and it made the experience so much fun.
Yeah, that's like an ideal microcosm of like what the world could be if we all saw that within ourselves, right? If we all saw it as like, hey, if we don't have to pull each other down, even though society tells us that as women, they're constantly telling us, right? Like, you know, there can only be one woman at this table, but no, we can build our own table. We can all have a seat here. And I think that's something that like, if we all took that approach, it would be such an amazing, amazing place to be. And I think that that's something that you do a great job of being other people's cheerleaders and supporting them. And you really do. And I love that. And so you said that there wasn't anything there, which is great. Did deal with a little bit of imposter syndrome for sure after as well. And then any like cyber type stuff as well.
Oh, yeah. So that's where bullying came in and it came in right on time. And so that is something that's where all of the hard work that I had done to fall in love with myself really unraveled. So not only is there cyberbullying, but then I started dating this guy who he was body shaming me all the time. The show was really hard because, and especially for me now, because my body is my soft spot. Right before I won Miss Massachusetts back in 2013-14, I had been like 185 pounds in the beginning of that year. And then I had been like really sick. And I realized now that I probably was really sick because I was bulimic and, you know, probably like throwing up with a dirty hand because you're like young and you don't realize. But I had a peritonsillar abscess So, and I'm like, oh, that's so weird. Why do you have that? You're like, probably because you keep sticking your dirty fucking fingers in the back of your throat, making yourself puke. That's probably, it probably has something to do with it. And like, I had gone through a big breakup that year. And instead of having a healthy breakup like I had with Riley, I had the one that was like, let's just do all the things. So, a lot of self-sabotage, like a lot of self-hate. And it's so funny to like look at the side by side, the different breakups and how the self-hate doesn't make you feel good. Like loving yourself, I've never been happier. Like I went through a breakup with the love of my life and I was literally the happiest I've ever been. Like in my whole life, I look back and I'm like, oh yeah, 2016 was my happiest year.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had been bulimic that whole year, lost 50 pounds, and I had lost weight from being sick and having the abscess in my throat. And then I had pneumonia. And so I lost like 20 pounds just from being ill. I had strep throat for like 3 months straight. Yeah. Like, again, probably the bulimia.
So you lost the weight due to an illness. And what was people's responses to your weight loss? Were you getting any people supporting of you losing that? And almost like, you look great.
You look great, but nobody knows I'm bulimic because at the same time, I'm not like heroin chic thin. So no one is like actually questioning that I have an eating disorder. I'm just like, you know, they think I'm just like working out really hard. And then on top of it, you know how there's like that gratification complex, like whatever. Yes. Then that fall, I win Miss Massachusetts.
And almost solidifies that like everything that you got to get up to there was good because of that as a reward.
Right, exactly. And so, and then I had worked really hard to, you know, fix that, but then cut to the cyberbullying from being on The Bachelor. People are making accounts calling me Miss Bacon, Caroline Lunny, Miss Bacon. And then they would harass me and leave like 50 comments on one photo and being like, you're so fat. You had to go to Massachusetts because you couldn't win anywhere else. Like, I'm from here. Like, this is my state. Like, this is born and raised. And it was just like, oh, you had to go there because you couldn't win anywhere else. And I was like, Massachusetts is actually a very competitive state in the pageants. So screw yourself. But that was them hitting me in my soft spot where it hurt. And that was happening. And then there was so much stuff about people talking about my body and just constantly attacking my body. Again, that's my soft spot. Yep. And then I'm dating this guy who I'll never forget this. And it's really hard to shake it. And I know that he's an asshole. I'm smart enough to have my conscious brain be like, no, he sucks.
Yeah.
But that's my soft spot. So I can't, it's kind of hard to talk yourself out of that. So I remember I'm sitting on the beach with this guy's family. We're on like a family trip. And I'm sitting there on the beach, on a beach chair in a bikini. And I'm like, oh my God, I love these people. I could see myself in this family. In this moment, I'm happy. And my phone goes off and I look down at my phone and it's a photo and he zoomed in on my fat rolls on the beach and sent it to me. So here I am, happy, falling in love, vulnerable. And in that moment, I hear a ding. And the thing is what makes me upset for my younger self is like, get up and leave. When someone disrespects you like that, leave. I should have been like, I think the fuck not. You're not going to do that to me. But instead, I stayed. I think I was like so embarrassed. But it's like, no, you don't. Imagine doing that to somebody.
Yeah, you can't blame yourself for that bullshit reaction. Like that was such a bullshit action to do to you. Like nothing warranted that, but you also can't blame for yourself for your response. Because think about that. That's shock. Someone that you expected to be the love of your life, supporting you, bringing you on a family trip, treating you in that way. I'm sure there was some shock associated with it.
And I know that boils down to his own insecurities. I'm smart enough to be like, oh, well, he was insecure about blah, 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 blah. So that's why he would attack me. So it was funny. So like, I obviously talked about how my ex is an NHL player, very good. So this guy was also a hockey player, but like not a good one. Like, and so he always wanted to be in the NHL and he never made it. I remember he said to me one time, because he would be like, you should go to the gym. You should go to the gym. And as an act of rebellion, I was like, no, fuck you. I'm not going to go to the gym and I'm going to eat this whole pizza. It's just funny how I'm like, hey, like that's a lose-lose. Nobody's winning here. He would be like, go to the gym. And then he would justify what he was saying. I'm like, leave me alone. But he would justify what he was saying. He's like, I just always saw myself like being in the NHL and marrying a supermodel. I was like, excuse me. sorry that your dreams are just not coming true. But like to degrade me and being like, to saying that I'm not a supermodel, but also you didn't make it to the NHL. But also, I was Miss Massachusetts. Like, I literally and
you
twice.
literally are a supermodel. I know, like, the term supermodel, but you literally are a model and all those things.
And also, like, I'm so much more than
that. Exactly. You're not made to just be some trophy wife. You can have the looks and all those things, but people need to see you for more than that. It breaks my heart that anyone ever made you feel inferior. That breaks my heart as your friend and just as a human and as another woman. You never deserved to feel that way. You never deserved to feel that way.
And I didn't. Thank you for saying that. But it's funny because, like, why is that the love that I thought that I deserved?
Mm-hmm.
And that's been a huge thing for me in this season of singleness, because the guy I dated after him was even worse. He said to me also, after my first egg retrieval, he talked about how I put on weight. After an egg retrieval, like, you're like, no shit, I'm bloated as fuck. This was literally 3 days after my surgery, was talking about how I had put on weight. Why is everyone talking about my body? And the thing is like, it's so funny on the internet when you talk about, I put up a post recently about how, hey, babe, just go buy some new jeans. Buy a bigger size. And it was great. It was one of my most successful reels I've ever posted. I had like 900,000 views. It doesn't even hold a candle to your onion water, but that's all right.
Y'all follow me on TikTok for more onion water. Okay,
so good. So good.
Oh, man.
But it's so funny. When I posted that, in like the same hour, somebody said, they were like, you're not even fat. Like, this is like so ridiculous for you to like call yourself fat. Like, and like, no. Basically, like, I'm such a bitch for saying that. And then an hour later, someone was like, well, or you could just go to the gym and lose the weight. And it's like, oh, it was so good for me to see. And I needed it to happen in exactly the time frame that it happened, because it was like, I'm never gonna fucking please everyone.
Fucking right, Caroline. That shit pisses me off. And I can relate to that so hard, because it's like I was constantly being told I wasn't thin enough to be a fitness like person. I wasn't lean enough. But then when I would speak on body acceptance and body positivity, I wasn't in that right category either. And so I don't know if y'all are like in the mid-size category, but we're tall girls over here, and it feels like we're always wrong. A 5'10", baby.
Same. High five.
I know. So yeah, that feeling of never being able, like, I feel like I was never accepted either way. And it was such a shitty feeling, but then you almost had to release that. Well, then why am I looking for acceptance either way anyways? We don't need to fit into a specific category because we weren't meant to. We weren't meant to fit in.
We weren't meant to. And it's just so hard because why are we commenting on this? Why are we saying things to people? And people always are asking people if they're pregnant. And then like, it's just like, oh my, it's just, there's so many things. It's such a flawed system where we're all just thinking our opinion is worthy of being heard about someone else's body. Like, shut up.
There's literally no need. There is no need to comment on anyone's body, good or bad. That's just the least important thing to be saying. And also, like we mentioned earlier, you just never know. So even if you're like, oh, well, I was saying nice things about their body, they could be sick. I've had clients who had lost their partner and were getting compliments after losing a lot of weight. And it's like, that is not helpful. So finding a way to step away from that. But I want to come back to that moment. So you saw both the comments. Do you feel like that was almost exactly what you needed?
Oh, it was a good moment for me to be like, all right, well, we're never going to please everybody. So it gave me permission to speak my truth. And it was a good reminder to see them side by side of like, someone is always going to be upset, whether I'm too thin, whether I'm too big. I think we need to really take a step back and go, am I happy? And I think that needs to be the new scale that we measure things from, because it's so much easier said than done. But I think so much of it comes down to, am I happy? And they talk about in manifestation, the reason why you want to manifest these things is because you want to feel a specific way. So think about the feeling that you want to feel. Having money in your hand isn't actually what you want. You want freedom.
Yep.
You want to be able to go take a trip and be present. So how can you practice those things in this moment? Practice those feelings in this present time instead of, attaching to the vehicle in which you use to get there.
Abraham Hicks talks all about that. I know we've talked about this before, but like getting to that energy and putting yourself in that place. And so instead of thinking like, oh, I'm not there yet, I can't embrace my body now. What is it that you really want? If you're on here and you're like, well, I do want to lose weight. I'm not anti weight loss and I'm not against any of that, but what is the actual intention behind it? And then release that being the main goal and find out what is the why. Is it that you want to feel more confident in your skin? Okay, what can we start doing? Like you said, get a pair of jeans that fit you, start putting yourself out there and doing those things. And the more you do that, the more you realize that you can step into that now.
Yeah, 1,000%. And it's so funny because it's like, I know this, right? And I'm over here preaching this right now. So, but anyone listening, I am by no means an expert. Like I just am kind of reiterating things that we've heard on Abraham Hicks and all the other spiritual woo-woo stuff that I love. But I started dating again and I've been single for 3 years. And I've been on like 3 dates in 3 years. And most of the dates were pretty terrible. But I actually just met a guy that I kind of like a little bit, and it probably won't go anywhere, but I'm just enjoying like what this is right now.
Yeah. Take the pressure off.
The idea of being naked in front of him scares the shit out of me.
This is huge. Yeah.
I've had sex 1 time in the last 3 years and I was hammered. So like that drunk sex is like, you're like, oh, whatever. Who cares about my body? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Sober sex, I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's super vulnerable. And I'm really actually so glad that you shared this because first of all, it's so real. And that's something more people need to realize is like, we look at people and we're like, oh my gosh, they're so beautiful. They're so this. They must not have any issues with their body, things like that. And the reason last year I hosted the Feel Good Naked Challenge was because I was going into my 30s and I was like, I do not want to have any more issues with my body. I want to feel confident in my skin. But the thing is, I realized, we're always going to feel certain things. They might still come up, but they might just not be as loud in our head. And so we can start to break up with that. And so I'm doing it again. I'm hosting it again. And we'll talk about this for sure. It's so important. But it's like, you got to love yourself. Screw what this guy thinks. Like, no offense to him. I don't know him like that. But like, I care about how you feel. And the way to do that is to start getting naked and then in other ways. So obviously get physically naked. And I have a lot of things around that with the challenge, but then also how can we get vulnerable and show up? And that's what I mean by going naked, which you sharing that right now is an example of that. You're being vulnerable with everyone. And I think that it helps us start to accept ourselves because we don't feel like we're hiding parts of ourselves in order to be accepted. Instead, we're just showing up fully.
And it's funny because being emotionally naked is so much easier for me than actually being physically naked, which is funny because you'd think it would be the other way around. So like I live at, my childhood home. I moved back home and my mom doesn't live here full time, but my brother does. So like I can't like run around naked.
Can't walk around naked.
No. But so he was like out of town recently. And so I was like,
naked day?
I had a naked day. You know what I did, Jordan? Do you know what I did? We have like all these woods behind our house. There's like no one can see in our backyard. And so I went in like in a spot where like, just in case my neighbor happened to be like trimming his shrubs or whatever over there, I was like, okay, he definitely can't see me if I go over here. And I know you love like grounding and like just putting your feet in the soil. I put my ass in the soil.
Yes, I live with this shit, Caroline.
I like laid in the yard naked and it was so freeing and it was such a good thing. And it had been like 60 degrees out that day. It wasn't even that warm, but I just was like, I just need some like sun where the sun don't shine. Like I need just to be naked for a minute. And it's so hard when you're in a weird place with your body and you're also not able to be naked. And no one has seen me naked. I don't sleep naked anymore. Like I miss being naked. Yeah. And like it's so good for you. Everyone strip down, take off your clothes and burn them and throw them away.
Let's be naked. Let's burn our clothes. All right, burn my bras. Let's go. No, I freaking love that for you. That sounds like just the perfect day. I have a lot of clients that are moms too. So they're like, I can't be butt ass naked because I'm naked all the time in my apartment. I just posted about this the other day. Literally, they were washing our windows and I didn't know about it. And I'm like making eye contact, butt ass naked, like sitting too, not even like a hot naked. I'm just sitting there.
I love it. I love it.
Oh man, I ran so fast. But, if you're not in that space to do that, there's other things you can do. I'm all about taking longer showers or setting a bath, like lock your doors, turn on some music and just be naked while you're doing that. I also have people do naked affirmations while you're putting on lotion after your shower, just basically trying not to dodge the mirror as much. Also, freaking sleep naked again. You said you loved it, right?
Oh, I slept naked last night. Nobody's home. I was like...
Done. Just keep a robe nearby just in case your fire alarm goes off. But that's basically it. What other things would you say help you? I mean, we're all in this together. We're all working through it. But what helps you feel good in your skin or feel good naked, as I like to say?
I like being naked. Right now I'm 190 pounds. I'm 5'10", 190 pounds. According to my scale, it's like 31% body fat, which again, leave the numbers alone. If I've learned anything from this episode, because this is almost like a therapy session for me. If I've learned anything from our little therapy session here, is that like leave the numbers alone. It's not about the numbers, but from everything in my past and like having people come for me for, people were coming for me, calling me fat 30 pounds ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's hard for me right now, to look at myself and be naked. And it's just hard to love myself in the mirror. I love to be naked around my house. Like I'm a nudist. So like I love that. But I think that's something I probably should work on, is that my therapist told me to do that. And I was like, I don't really want to look at it. But I should. Because then sometimes I look at myself and I'm like, wait a minute, you look pretty good.
Girl,
like,
yes.
I'm being so hard on myself. I think we just all need to work on leaving the numbers behind and just letting ourselves love ourselves. Like so much easier said than done. But I don't know why we're all, who made us hate ourselves so much.
Yeah, we just went over 30 years, 25 years of, real shit. And so it's going to take time to break up with what we're taught is our worthiness wrapped up in those things. And so much of what we're doing is being solidified that like, this is the right way. This is the right way. Even when we do start taking care of ourselves, it's hard because sometimes society's reaction is exactly what you don't need. I don't need compliments on losing weight because that's a byproduct, not my main focus. And so that needs to be a shift. Working out, like that needs to be a shift. We're breaking up with that punishment mindset, and you're doing that. The other thing I want to come back to is our wording. You mentioned something a couple times. You said, that's my soft spot. And when you say it, soft spot, as if it's a vulnerable thing, is like, it is vulnerable, but I feel like you deserve to be soft. I know it sounds weird, but what I mean by that is like, you deserve to be able to be soft and feel vulnerable and feel held and feel nurtured. And you don't need to be hard. You don't need to be holding up a front for anyone else, but I'm speaking as your friend because I love you, and you deserve to feel that way. And I struggled with that for a really long time. I didn't want to fully be myself, fully show myself until I found that within myself, all of those things. And like, you fully deserve that. And like, you will have that. So don't ever see your soft spot as a bad thing. It is your strength, because your soft spot, you have such a soft heart for others. You're teaching and helping people heal themselves with their relationship with their body right now in this moment, as well as heal their relationship with being their own advocate when it comes to having babies and getting the egg retrieval and all the things you're doing. And like, holy shit, you are changing lives, and you're doing it in your softness. So don't think you have to change that in order to be better or be different or show up any differently. Like, you absolutely deserve to show up as you are right now, and you're worthy of that love, you're worthy of that acceptance, and you're worthy of success in this moment right now. I'm going to cry.
I'm literally crying, so it's fine. Thank you for saying all that. I love you so much.
I love you.
Woo, J.Go.
I love you. I'm sorry. I did not want
No, it's okay. It's good.
But I'm not sorry. We're just here.
I love to cry, honestly. I think it's so cathartic, and I think it's so good, and I think it's so weird when people like don't let themselves cry. I'm like,
no, it's important too. It's healthy.
So good to like feel your feelings. I think that's so important.
Yes, that's a part of being vulnerable. A part of being naked is showing up as you are, and as things come in waves, allowing them to be. And you're doing just that, and it's beautiful.
It's so funny you said something in the things that you said. It just reminded me of like, so something I'm working on is, like I said, I've been single for 3 years, and a lot of it is because I had a really traumatic, last relationship. It was really scary. The guy was just the absolute worst. But now in like dating again, or like trying to date, it's really hard being naked in front of somebody. So much of my worth is attached to my weight. And I need to break up with that, because
you will.
And I know that I need to, but like, just because I know it doesn't mean I like am it, And so much of me is putting off dating until I get to this place. That I'm not worthy of love as I am right now. And it's kind of like a defense mechanism. I'm sure there's a lot of things wrapped up in this, that I won't lose the weight, because when I lose the weight, then I'll have to date. And like, this is kind of like my thing to protect myself.
The shield.
It's totally a shield. And so it's like, oh, like, because I don't want to let anybody in. I'm not worthy of being loved as I am right now because someone's going to comment on my weight and they're going to see me naked in all of the ways and all the metaphorical ways of being naked. And I feel like I'm so vulnerable on my Instagram and stuff. But this guy that I'm seeing follows me on Instagram and I was like, I'm about to block you. Like, you're not.
It's okay if you need to.
And it's funny that I'm so comfortable being vulnerable with strangers, but actually letting somebody in, a real person in, is absolutely terrifying.
It's, at least in my experience, there's still a bit of a comfort, like a safety net when you're showing up online. And so I'm like, okay, well, I can kind of still dictate and control what I am showing, even if it is a lot more than other people, which I know you do the same. But God, I'm going to start crying. There was a part of me, even after getting married, there was a part of me, even after getting married, where I was still afraid that, like, if he sees all of me, the shitty sides, the panic attacks, I was hiding my panic attacks from Tom. He'd never seen me have them before we got married. And I was so afraid that if he saw me in that most vulnerable state, which is really fucking vulnerable because I look like a fetus rocking on the ground, crying, sobbing. I'm not a cute crier, very much an ugly crier. And there was such a fear there.
Here's Kim K. It's fine.
There are no memes about me yet, but, and it took me having to be so fucking vulnerable in that state, in that space. And not everyone deserves to have all of you and see all of you. So you still get to choose what that is. But at some point, I know that there's going to be a level of safety and comfort to where you can fully embrace that. And I don't want it to have to be when you change. I want it to be when you're in this current body because I need this current body to see that too. Also, we can literally cut any of this out because I love you.
It's good. I don't want to cut any of this out. I think it's so important. And I think all of it needs to be, because I think so many people, we can't be the only people who feel this way. Do you know what I mean?
No.
Like other people.
I hope not, but at least we have each other if it is. But I don't think we're the only ones.
We're definitely not, but thank God we have each other. But so how did you get to that point with your panic attacks and letting Tom in and letting him be a rock for you? Because I think, like, for me, a lot of the time with stuff like this, I'm like, oh, if they see this side of me, they won't love me, or they'll see it as baggage or whatever. Yeah. And how did you get to that point with Tom to be like, I'm going to let you in?
So at one point, I couldn't hide a panic attack when it came up, and it was really messy, and he didn't really know how to react, and he kind of just was there. This was not a great situation when it came to the panic attack because he didn't react great. He was there, but he was just there. He now literally lays on me when I have a panic attack. I haven't had him in a year since hypnotherapy, but
cool, good.
After that moment, I had a conversation with him, and I was like, this literally is my nightmare. I'm telling you right now, what you just saw is my nightmare. And he also was like, I've never seen this from you. I didn't realize, and at this point, it almost hurt him. He didn't realize that I was feeling this way, that I was really struggling this hard with this grief, with this loss, with this change of what was going on. And that was comforting to hear his response. And then his reaction of me having to, again, tell him, it's weird how we end up with someone who's very different. He doesn't deal with depression like I do, anxiety, and when it comes to panic attacks, he'd never seen them, experienced them, whatever. And so having to explain that to someone, he had heard me say it before, but he never experienced it. So him seeing it definitely helped. So me having to uncontrollably be like that, and then just having the conversation like, hey, this is a part of me that I've literally hidden from you for a really long time. And I was so afraid to. And I feel like I straight up said, like, I feel like you will leave me if you see more of this. He continued to talk about this and save this. Now, that's one answer. But the other thing is, like, let's say someone's response is not great and they're like just shitty and they just kind of say that, like, having to remind ourselves, okay, I need someone to accept all of me because that's what you deserve. If you think about younger Caroline, she deserves to be seen as well and not held in a different way. So we have to be able to show all of ourselves. And so it took me just like slowly getting more and more vulnerable. That one was an uncontrollable thing, but then other things I would just kind of like be honest with him and communicate it. And that definitely helped. But I think I had to be honest with myself first. There were things that I would hide from myself, and I was distracting through drinking and through trying to solve everyone else's problems.
You said something there, and it was funny. It made me think about this. And I know I have to like apply this mentality to a lot of situations in my life. Yeah. But you were saying, like, when sharing this side with Tom, it was really hard. And you're like, oh, are you gonna are you gonna leave me? Are you gonna reject me? If Tom did that, would you leave him? Would you reject him? Like if he was having a panic attack. You're not going to leave Tom if he has a panic attack?
Fuck no. No, I wouldn't.
Yeah, you wouldn't.
But if his response was bad, do you mean, or do you mean if it was flipped? So do you mean if the scenario was completely flipped?
So yeah, I'm talking about if Tom is having a panic attack.
Mm-hmm.
If he's having a bad response, like
Yeah.
I'll get into that in a second because I had that actually happen. But if Tom is having a panic attack, how do you respond?
So I definitely think from that point, I could help him because I've been through it before. And I've had situations where his response to external stress is coming into the home, and when that comes up, sometimes our first experience with that in a relationship is like, it's me. I'm the problem because this is me. It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me was like always my thought. So I would immediately get defensive. Anytime he started to share, I would get defensive. And so I had to start pausing, especially because we're different processors. I had to start pausing with him, letting him express what was coming up, and then just being curious as an outlook, like friend versus being in the relationship, and just be like, hey, like, why is that coming up? Or why do you feel that way? And instead of being like, oh, it's because I'm not a good enough wife. Whereas that I was very triggered the first like year or two of our relationship. And I had to really work through that. But it also came back to me, which is kind of what you were talking about earlier with the relationship, is like what I'm willing to accept of what I deserve. Or I think you said it in a way more beautiful way. But
why is that the love that I deserve?
Why is that the love that I think that I deserve? Mm-hmm. And so I had to come back to me of like, why am I being triggered by him sharing something that's just him sharing how he's feeling in this moment?
Mm.
And so did
you get to the bottom of that?
Yeah, it was me feeling like I wasn't good enough. And that happened a lot. I feel like I am, okay, all the memes about like the messy husband or whatever. I am the messy husband. I am the one who has the mess. I have a thing. So like that's 90% of what our discussions are. And so having to, instead of getting like triggered by that and thinking I'm not enough, think about, okay, well, what's a solution here that we can actually come to that's going to work for both of us? And we kind of have a better plan with that now.
So something that helped me with that, because sometimes I can be the messy husband and sometimes I can be the OCD wife.
Best of both worlds.
So my sister, we all know, is the OCD wife. Like everything is always
so clean. I love her.
But so Courtney and Jake, they went to couples therapy before they got married, because there's a couple little things. I think one, just let me talk about therapy for half of a second, sidebar. Therapy is amazing. Everyone should be in it. And the thing is like, I think back in the day, it was like, oh, well, they're in couples therapy. It was like, they're doomed. It's like, no, those people are choosing themselves. They are choosing each other. They are choosing, because we all kind of suck at communicating a little bit, and we all communicate a little differently. And so I think it's one of the best things people can do. There is no shame in the therapy game. If you and your significant other need a little therapy, go get it. Go do that. That's great. Everyone should do that. But they went to therapy. And so my mom and Courtney, they're very, everything is always put away. And I'm not always that way. Sometimes I like things out. And so Jake said something through their therapy, whatever. And he was like, your way isn't the only way. And because someone like messy is seen as bad, right? Just because society has deemed it as bad doesn't mean it's wrong. Like, it's like, that's not actually wrong.
Yeah.
I think it's giving yourself permission to be like, hey, like, just because Tom is, everything has a place, that's not how I work. And that's not wrong. It's just different.
Oh my gosh. I feel like I could talk to you all day, and I want to shift into just my final questions, which I call them the rapid fire questions, super quick. And then, we'll kind of close out. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. Sweet. First one, what is your current, or maybe one of your most recent Netflix binges, or like a show that you were like, I could watch this so quickly? It could be recent, could be your go-to.
I've been loving Designated Survivor right now. I know it's an older show, but it's about the whole Capitol gets bombed and everybody, like the president, vice president, all of Congress, Senate, everyone dies. And so there's this guy who's like the guy from like the Department of HUD. I don't even know what his official job title was, but he's like the lowest man on the totem pole, becomes president, and he's independent. And it's actually really cool and like the whole thing with him is that he's honest and he does everything the right way. And I just love it. I just love the whole like,
where's it stream?
I think it's Netflix.
Netflix. Okay, sweet.
So that's it's totally random, but that's the show I've been watching right now. So.
Love it. Good one. Okay. Next thing, what's like the funniest or most embarrassing or something like moment from any of your times on The Bachelor or Bachelor in Paradise?
Definitely when I arrived in Paradise. It was
tell me.
So when I arrived in Paradise, they had me come in the middle of the night. When you come into Paradise, like it's like this like really lush resort, and I'm walking down this like very tiny like stone stepway, And I knew one of my friends was there, but when I got there, she was napping, and I had thought like we would have a moment to talk and her to give me the lay of the land.
Yeah.
They just threw me in. I wasn't used to like having the spotlight be all on me, because like when I was on The Bachelor, like people. I'm one of, and so I need a minute to get my bearings.
Yeah.
Like that's just how I always am. And the second that I'm comfortable, like I'm good to go. But I was so uncomfortable, and I was like, oh, hi, where? Okay, everyone's already like paired up, and I was like, well, I already know you, so never mind. And like, and I just was like, I have to go to the bathroom. And like, I said that I had to go to the bathroom because I didn't want to talk to this guy anymore. And I just was like, all right, well, I've got to go to the bathroom. So, because like I needed like an out. Yeah. And then they filmed me in the bathroom, and you hear the toilet flush.
Stop.
And was waiting out there for me. And I was like, oh, fuck. I didn't want to. I thought like that was how I was going to get away from you. And then they were waiting. And I was like, I didn't mean that I needed
assistance. Get out of here.
I'm like, he's still there.
Like, so funny.
No, it was super awkward. And the music that they put with it, they just really leaned into the awkwardness. So
that is cool. Too good. Oh my gosh. Yep. Okay. What was your AOL screen name as a kid? Don't choke on your coffee.
I was just talking about this with a guy that I'm talking to. I asked what his was, and his was really goofy. But mine, Lady Jane 26, was like on AOL, which why is it Lady Jane? Like that's so stupid. But my family, my nickname was always Callie, and then got further abbreviated to Cal. Mm-hmm. And so it was just Callie 2587, because that was like the last 4 digits of my phone number. Super boring. Sorry, I don't have anything good here.
No, it's cute. And then, okay, so podcast is called Confidently Uncomfortable. So at the end, I always ask my guests, what is something that you're currently doing or you're about to do that's outside of your comfort zone in order to grow in your confidence? It could be anything. It could be career related, personal related, whatever.
So there are 2 pieces to this. Okay. So I have been talking about doing a podcast forever and ever and ever. And I love podcasting. This is so much fun. But doing my own podcast is terrifying. So I hired a coach or like a producer. I shot the cover of it. I'm doing it. I'm moving at a snail's pace.
It's happening.
I'm making myself do it because I didn't want to one day look up and I'm on my deathbed and I'm like, I didn't do those things. It's like, you'll always just be like, why didn't I do that? Like, that would have been fun. That would have been cool. And I love this whole thing. Like, this is great. I love connecting with people. I love sharing stories. I think it's so important for us all to hear, because I think we're all kind of in this together. But think about our parents' generation. No one shared anything. And so everyone was very like hush hush about everything. It's like, I think one of the most beautiful things about our generation is that we are more open, which lets people feel kind of okay where they're
not alone.
Instead of us all feeling like isolated, like we're all have the secret problem. Like, no, bitch, we all have the same problem. So
we're all messed up in it together.
That's one of it. And then the other thing is I have to have sex.
Yes, let's go. You should do my feel good naked challenge, Caroline.
So I honestly will. I need to just like go let myself have sex, because and like where I am right now, like I'm gonna go have sex next week. So
I mean, yes, it can involve 2 people, but it can also involve 1. So we'll keep it at that. You do you. Yeah. But yeah, I just love you, Cal. I love you so much. Also, I don't know why I picture this, but I feel like your life is gonna be like that 13 going on 30, like the movie, because you had the hockey player, but then who's not really it,
Chris
and
Brandy.
And you end up with the perfect situation, someone who loves you just as you are, and you don't have to be anyone else. And I love you doing you, though. Like, just keep doing your thing. I'm so excited for your podcast to come out. Can't wait for it. It's going to be amazing.
I'm very excited.
Yes. So in the meantime, if people are like waiting on pins and needles for the podcast to drop, where can they hang out with you?
I love to hang out on Instagram. It's my jam. Yeah. I love the stories. I love stories. I think like people are like, oh, the engagement and like the growth. I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I want to hang out, and that's on stories.
I love that about you. That's great. We'll definitely put your Instagram handle in the show notes at Caroline Lunny. But yeah, super easy to remember. Thanks for being here.
I love you, J.Go. You're a phenomenal host. You ask great questions, and it's so easy to talk to you. So thank you so much for having me on. This was great. I love you so much.
I love you. Bye, girl.